this is just a quick addendum to the video I did about Vergil Ortiz possibly fighting David Avanesyan. Now, there were several people in the comment section who said that this is a WBC final eliminator and therefore it has nothing to do with Ortiz trying to embarrass Conor Benn by taking on a guy who he refuses to take on. And the inference is that the WBC are making Vergil Ortiz fight Avanesyan. Well, you may be right about that, possibly, but you could also be wrong. And the reason I say this is because if you understand anything about the way mandatories work, it's often the case that two teams will make a fight first, or they'll propose a fight. And after they've proposed the fight, after they've started talking to each other, they will then approach the sanctioning body and try to lobby them to make it a final eliminator. That's often how it works in boxing. Not always, but many times it works like that. And if you read the language in that Boxing Scene article, it said that this fight will serve as a WBC final eliminator. And to me, that sounds suggestive of it actually being the will of the two teams to make the fight rather than the will of the WBC. So just as I described, perhaps the two teams said, okay, let's have a fight. We'll see if we can get it made as a WBC final eliminator. Then it makes more sense, potentially more money on the line. And if there's any kind of issues with regards to negotiations, perhaps it will go to a purse bid and the WBC will sort all that out. You see? Now, of course, in other situations, you have the main fighter, the A side, or the person who's in the #1 ranked position, and he simply wants to fight somebody in a final eliminator, and the sanctioning body will order somebody else to fight him. Now, in every case, the sanctioning body orders it, but it's whether it was the will of the promoters or whether it was the sanctioning body acting of its own volition. And as I say, in certain instances, you'll get a #1 ranked fighter who really wants a title shot, and the sanctioning body will be looking down the rankings, #2, #3, whoever, and asking who wants to fight him. Now, eventually they'll find somebody and that will become the final eliminator. But you do realize that you don't have to take final eliminators, right? For example, look at the number of people who turned down the IBF final eliminator at heavyweight with Filip Hrgović recently. So it's not like Vergil Ortiz has to take this fight. He could go the WBO route. He could go the IBF or the WBA route as well. Doesn't have to go the WBC route. Yeah, there's many other routes that he can take. So I just want to clarify a few things and explain how these final eliminators often work. But again, to reiterate what I said at the start, you could well be right that it has nothing to do with Vergil Ortiz trying to embarrass not just Conor Benn, but other prospects and up-and-coming fighters out there who might be trying to swerve Avanesyan. Yeah, you might be right that it's nothing to do with that. But then again, maybe it is. Because Avanesyan, at least in the UK, has developed somewhat of a reputation of upsetting prospects and what have you. Maybe Ortiz feels like, this guy's nothing. I don't know what all the fuss is about. I'll deal with him easy. I'll show the world that I'm the #1 in terms of contenders in the welterweight division. It's not Jerome Ennis, definitely not Conor Benn, it's me. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm not saying I'm definitely right. It was an idea that I floated out there. In fact, it was a question that I posed in the previous video. It was a question. I said, is Ortiz trying to embarrass Conor Benn? I don't know whether he is. It's a possibility in my head that I came out with. Yeah. So perhaps that's not the case. Perhaps it is the case. Either way, if Ortiz decides to go through with the fight, he deserves more credit than Conor Benn. Because imagine Conor Benn was in the same position with the WBC, if he was #1 contender or whatever. Do you think Eddie Hearn would be lobbying the WBC to make Conor Benn mandatory or to put Conor Benn in the final eliminator against Avanesyan? Or do you think he would go in a different direction with a different sanctioning body against an opponent who's maybe less dangerous than Avanesyan, or at least somebody who hasn't turned over Eddie Hearn prospects before in the past? You know, you let me know what you think Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn would do in this situation. Would they be going through with a final eliminator against Avanesyan, or would they be seeking opportunities with other sanctioning bodies instead? There are going to be idiots out there, of course, who say, oh, you've got it in for Eddie Hearn. No. You do not have the brain power. You do not have the intellect to understand what I do on this channel. It's called objectivism. And a lot of the fanboys I've noticed will only click on the videos. They'll only watch the videos I make which relate to the fighters they're interested in, the fighters they are fanboys of. So for example, if they're an Eddie Hearn, AJ fanboy, they will only watch the videos where I'm criticizing AJ. They will never watch the videos where I'm criticizing Dylan White or Frank Warren. And so they end up with this very skewed perception. This idea that I only ever criticize Eddie Hearn and I don't criticize anybody else, therefore I must be biased. This is how dumb these people are. And this is what massive fanboys they are. They won't even watch the other video. They'll only watch the videos about their particular fighters. Eddie Hearn fighters and AJ. These people are something else. I'm not even going to tell them to up their game intellectually because that's impossible. That's like trying to tell an earthworm to learn algebra. It's not going to happen, is it? They don't have the capacity. They don't have the potential to actually understand the concept like objectivism. It's always going to completely go over their heads. And they see any criticism of the fighters they are fanboys of as some type of bias attack. That's how they see it. That's how stupid and what's the word I'm looking for? Intellectually inadequate, intellectually compromised, intellectually deficient. Call it what you want to call it. That's what they're like. So they're going to get upset, but I'm just trying to get to the truth of the matter, for one. And in trying to get to the truth of the matter, when you're not on the inside, you have to float different ideas out there. And that's what I do in my videos. I float a lot of different ideas around. Now, some things I'm very sure about, other things I'm not so sure about, as with this idea that Ortiz is maybe trying to embarrass Conor Benn. I'm not so sure about that. It's just an idea that I floated around. But other things I'm very, very sure about because there's more evidence to back it up. So anyway, I'll leave it there. This was supposed to be a short one. Probably ended up being longer than the original video. It is what it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.